Let me join my fellow panelists in thanking all of you for organizing this. I do a lot of speaking where there's a machinery, a giant mega machine of a university system working, and I can see how few you are, but so dedicated. So thank you so much. At every point, we are witnessing how much of yourselves you've given to make it possible for us all to be here, and especially for you to bring me after 4 years of trying. Thank you. David talked a lot about the entire sort of permanent war economy that the economy has become. And this is not an empty word anymore. Some people who used to specialize in the armaments industry used to say that. But when I look at food, I realize that's a permanent war economy. Yeah? Every agrochemical is a war chemical. Even genetic engineering, the tool that is used, the only two ways you can move a gene from a human being into a chicken, or a soil bacterium into the corn. And the way it works is you either shoot the gene through a gene gun, or you infect the cell with a plant cancer called agrobacterium. So one is chemical warfare, genetic warfare, the other is biological warfare. The tools are based on a thinking like war. Then it's war against the land, and everything we've talked about is war against the land. And then it's war against our bodies. There's a beautiful display out there on how women's bodies are being targeted through all these toxics, all the harmful substances. And yet, one reason there is so much domination of a narrative of feeding the world is because of what David called the mass distraction. And sadly, it's not, the media, of course, is media. But I witness science becoming media and public relations. Independent knowledge, the kind of knowledge I was seeking when I went to do science, where you want your mind to explore and inquire in absolute freedom. Now, that's not what is today's dominant system. I started to look at globalization when it started, before it started, when they were laying the foundations. And we could see how this would lead to a convergence of big corporations becoming bigger and taking over government. And we've seen that happen. What was created was a corporate state. The White House is not run by the citizens who elect the president. It's run by the lobbyists of the big oil or big agri or the Monsantos, etc. Our Prime Minister's office is not run by the citizens of India. It's run by the same group of people. It's the same Cargills and the same Walmarts and the same Monsantos. So from about 1995, when globalization was structured into the World Trade Organization and free trade, to about 5 years ago, when we had the collapse of Wall Street, we had governance by corporate states who continued the theater of being sovereign, but in effect there was absolutely no sovereignty anymore and no democracy. 2008 became a watershed for two reasons. One, the old system wasn't working anymore. It was collapsing. At every point, it was collapsing. I don't know, $13 trillion spent on bailout of big banks. I watched the crisis this has created for Europeans who had the most amazing system based on social welfare. And yet their systems were broken. And today the Greeks are being asked to pay for the banks by giving up their right to education, right to health, right to water, as are the Italians, as are the Spaniards, or the Portuguese. But when collapse happened, immediately across the world, new movements were created. And Occupy was the articulation of, at that point it said 1% and 99%, and increasingly people are saying, no, it's 0.001%. It's such an insignificant minority that is gaining from the present kind of structure. And then you had in Spain, as soon as the crisis started, these young people on the street saying, we didn't create the crisis and you're not going to make us pay for it. And they call themselves the Indignados, the N15 movement. In India, every place where resources are being grabbed, whether it be water, or it be land, or it be forest, or it be minerals, people are saying no. People are putting their bodies and saying no. This is our sacred land, these are our sacred rivers, and we will not allow you to grab. Because grabbing has become the only basis of the economy. And when people resist, how does the corporate state respond? By becoming a militarized surveillance corporate state. And that's why it's not an accident that in our times we get the Snowdens, all the names that you mentioned in your intervention earlier. These are not arbitrary indicators. They are pointing to the direction on the basis of which the system can extend its life for maybe 10 years more through this level of militarized intervention in ordinary people's lives. It can't carry on beyond that. And Clayton talked about his memories of abundance. The abundance that, one pumpkin seed will give you, my guess is about 200 pumpkin seeds. Yeah? But the entire ambition is to not allow the seed to give a seed. And the seedless, everything is seedless. The seedless papaya, the seedless pumpkin, the seedless this, the seedless that. As if the seed is the enemy. As if the seed must be driven out. Another very interesting thing is, our pumpkins, like your pumpkins, the traditional varieties, can sit in the house for a year, 2 years, and they're fine. They're just waiting to be eaten. The new stuff, within 2 weeks, it's rotten. They all look alike, and in 2 weeks, they're gone. They're not meant to be kept for seed like this. So this economy of abundance, which is the economy of nature, which is the economy of people working in community, as Greg so powerfully described this morning, of giving. I go a lot to gurdwaras in India, and we did a whole festival a few years ago on faith and food. Guru Nanak, who's the founder of the Sikh religion, he created a tradition of the giving of food as a gift. And in a gurdwara, you could have places where 40,000 and 50,000 people are fed. And I have never seen a fundraising initiative. Never. There is no proposal writing. People are giving freely the milk, and nobody's calculating. It's just coming and being cooked and going. And even the cooking is a gift for labor. We have a beautiful word in our language called shramdan. And on our farm and in our school, we practice it. Gandhi practiced it all the time. Because we have scarcity when everything has to be bought. Yeah? When you have to buy the seed, you have to buy the food, you have to buy the labor, you have to buy everything. Abundance is created through creativity. The creativity of nature on the one hand, and the human community on the other. The beautiful presentations of the School of Music, which is also a school of textiles and everything else. I think the beautiful thing about an abundant economy, an economy of abundance, is it is also an economy of beauty. I have never seen ugliness being created in gift economies. Ugliness is created in commoditized, exploitative economies. And the example of textiles is so dramatic. You get $5 jeans in Walmart. You just have to go to the slave factories of China or the Bangladesh factories where, while the building was collapsing, people were locked in. I know how these factories work. If Walmart has to get its delivery, then the women must keep stitching, even if there's a fire, even if the building is collapsing, so that those 3 extra jeans can be finished. It is based on a genocide at every level. And then why is the cotton so cheap that goes into the jeans? I told you the story about the BT cotton. It's cheap because farmers are paying with their lives. It's not cheap for the farmer, but it's cheap for the trade. And these are the contradictions the system is bursting under. The contradiction that highly costly food produced with costly patented seed, costly chemicals, costly machinery ends up being cheap on supermarket shelves because of the $400 billion subsidy that is enjoyed. That's our money. It's our tax money. Another contradiction, that the more they say they're producing food for people, the more hunger grows. The more they say that there's nutrition, the more the diseases grow. 1 billion people hungry on the planet and 2 billion sick because of food. There are 3 perfect storms, they're sort of converging. The climate crisis that has been referred to and the climate catastrophes that are taking place. The food crisis, whether it be denial of food or it be bad food. And third is the crisis of democracy and freedom. Because everything we have talked about is ultimately about freedom. Now, when you had the shutdown in this country, I remember reading a line by one of the Tea Party kind of commentators who said, what did he say? Less government, more freedom, more government, less freedom. And I said, this is very interesting, because the system that has been built actually requires more government. You need a government to police farmers on intellectual property rights, a massive machinery of intellectual property police. You need a massive government system to be inspectors of this toxic food. You need a bigger and bigger government to create the concessions to make an unviable and unsustainable system work. But obviously the debate was not about government per se, but it was about public systems at the service of the public good. And there's this urge for privatizing the last drop. This morning, Amigdio showed, the 2 economies. He had seed in one hand, and he had the dollar note on the other. Now, the dollar note is green. It's interesting. And they're now talking about the green economy. And we were at Rio Plus 20, where there was a big battle. This unified everybody. I was at the Earth Summit, and there were 2 of us who were talking genetic engineering. And all the other environmentalists were saying, why are you even bothering about this? And we said, this will be the big issue. Nobody was talking separately at this year's Earth Summit. Everyone was marching together against the so-called green economy, which is designed to commodify the last bit of nature. They want to commodify the processes by which green leaves convert carbon dioxide into oxygen. They want to be able to, of course, as ecological functions, commodify watershed functioning. They would like to commodify everything and bet on it, on the Wall Street that has already collapsed once. And they want to put the fate of the earth in the hands of those who gamble on a global casino. We can't afford to do that. And that is why each of us in our place has to take care of the earth where we are. I think the challenge for us at this point is we've got to get so deeply rooted in place that we know with every nerve of the earth her well-being and respond to her call. But while we do that, to not get locked into islands of isolation. To realize that we are one amazing earth family. I think the beautiful question that came from you, I want to get out of the supermarket. I don't want to consume. Where do I go? You know, the one tribe is the earth family. The earth is inviting you. We did a calculation in IFG that when the globalization process is over, 3% people will be employed in the corporations. 3%. The rest will have to find something else. And there's only one place which will never run out of an invitation to co-create and co-produce, and that is the earth. And the seed is the link through which we co-create and co-produce. In most things, humanity takes from the earth. Agriculture is the only activity through which we can give back. We can give back the seed of the crops we have harvested. We can give back the fertility through the organic matter. It's the only thing where we can give back and say thank you in very concrete ways. And that is why the challenge of the seed and of agriculture becomes so big. Now, for the last 3-4 years, as we've built a global campaign on seed freedom and food freedom, we've realized that globally we need to not have a mastermind. There is no mastermind. I mean, the Occupy movement was beautiful because it was self-organized. The seed freedom movement is self-organized. But to be self-organized doesn't mean to not be linked. My two big teachers from nature are the pollinators that are constantly linking through the act of pollination. Miles, look at where the monarch butterfly flies from and goes all the way to Mexico. And look at the salmon, again your beautiful picture on the salmon harvest. Look how much the salmon travel. Yeah? So linking for life is not the issue. Linking for life is not the problem. The other very, very amazing organism that should be our teacher is the mycorrhizae, that thrives in soils with organic matter, with humus, and can go miles to pick up a little bit of nutrients. We have to be mycorrhizae for each other. I think it's Pablo Neruda who wrote a beautiful poem which has a line, I want to be the spring for your cherry blossoms to flower. Because Greg talked about a huge competition and conflict between the machine paradigm and whether it's money making as a machine of money or it's genetic engineering thinking as life. They call themselves the life sciences. Where's the life? Life disappeared in the so-called biotechnology systems. There is no life there. But to think of everything living as a machine, that's one. The other is to recognize everything living is full of life, an abundant life waiting to create abundance in its life and to share that abundance and not to fear scarcity because there is no scarcity. So every year we've decided we're going to focus our international energies from 2nd October, which is Gandhi's birth anniversary, and Gandhi gives us these two ideas of freedom. One, defend your freedom, and other, resist everything that takes away your freedom. And the image in my head always is, with one hand, plant a seed, and with the other hand, keep out the GMOs and the patenting. And we have two hands, and we got 5 fingers in both hands. Yeah. So Gandhi's birth anniversary, 2nd October, to 16th October, which is World Food Day. This is when this year Monsanto gave itself the World Food Prize, and we started the whole campaign of honoring the real food heroes who bring us real food through real love. And we need to start this because that honoring is the recognition of our own economy of abundance. It is a recognition of the community that we must be building. And I'm thinking that, if you look at the whole dominant agriculture system versus the traditional agriculture system, where the traditional agriculture system is based on giving, abundance, and always being prepared with resilience. And the industrial system is not just based on war, it's based on waste. Yeah? You use 10 units of energy to produce 1 unit of food. Then you take that grain and torture the animals with it and produce 1 unit, out of 10 units. So you take 100 units and produce 1 pathetic unit, and then you waste 50% of that through food miles, through uniformity, through Walmart having to throw away half of what it stocks. It's a hugely wasteful system, but it's wasting people. And that's why, to me, when the women of Canada talked about Idle No More and wanted me to come, and I haven't been able to go, including celebrating their 1 year of resistance, I realized, Idle No More is so powerful. It's not just for your silly Harper. I think it's for, he is silly. I mean, I think he's terribly silly. But, everyone who, with arrogance and blindness, is out to destroy everything that is good, beautiful, and living. And Idle No More is saying, I won't be idle in terms of going buy my seed. I will save my seed. I will not be idle. I will not be idle and just spray Roundup. Monsanto has an ad in India where it has women's hands tied up with greens. And it says, liberate yourself, use Roundup. And I had to write to, advertising councils to get rid of this because it's demeaning women's work in agriculture. So Idle No More is such a powerful call for our times. It's a call to ourselves to unleash all our capacities. Yeah? We were told our hands are useless. And everything which we did by hand was called drudgery. And everything in efficiency was get rid of human hands. We are told our brains are useless. And that's where you get the whole intellectual property. And of course, we've been told there's nothing like a heart. In the early debates on genetic engineering, I remember the corporation saying, we cannot take into account ethics and other irrelevant considerations. Our values are irrelevant, and only destruction is relevant. This is why what we do at the smallest scale is so important, so very important. And we have to increase our handprint, do more and more with the capacity of our hands. Use our minds and our cultures and our intelligence more and more in collaboration with the intelligence of nature. And enlarge our hearts. There is no limit to the capacity of our hearts, of compassion, of solidarity. That's what we have to unleash. And when we train ourselves, and that's what education is about, that's what culture is about, then we can recognize the beautiful poem that has been my inspiration from Palestine. Thank you so much for that presentation. But from the day I started saving seed, I received a poem in the mail. It was a translation of a Palestinian poem. And it basically says, you can destroy our trees and destroy our farms, drop bombs on our villages, take away our edicts and our metaphors, till no bird, no insect can find a place to hide. You can do that and more. But I do not fear your tyranny. I will not despair ever, because I save one seed, which I will save and plant again. Thank you.
Clayton, are there any other remarks before we close? I've been asked to call up 2 women from the Santa Clara Pueblo who have a gift to present to Dr. Shiva. So if we could do that now, and then we'll start with our closing prayers, or end with our closing prayers. And the women who are coming up on stage are Kathy Sanchez and Beata Sozi Pina.
This is a gift from women, from Te Women United and all of us in northern New Mexico. It's actually a seed pot. So this is a seed pot made with from pottery, and it depicts the male and female energy and Mother Earth. And this is a gift from our area for the wonderful, beautiful, loving generosity that you give to everybody.
So I'm gonna first do an Iroquois seed song set, so I'm gonna hurry and do it before the sun sets. I know it's early now.